Well, great. I know we have a lot to cover today, so I think we probably want to get started, and it looks like our audience will continue to pop in as it has similarly over the last so many webinars that we've done. But welcome back, everyone. This is our final webinar in our grain conference series this spring. And summer has come early here in Vermont. It's going to be almost 80 degrees today. So we are busy planting grains like we mentioned yesterday. And today, Jeffrey and Sylvia, I'm planting some purple and red wheat that we got from Steve Jones that we've been working with
Fantastic.
over the last couple of years. So trying to increase the seed. It's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And once this series is over, then we'll be planning on doing those rye varietal tests.
Yes,
right?
yes, and we have some baked.
That'll be exciting.
I pulled the seed out the other day, so we'll be moving into our next phase of work after.
That's exciting.
Wrap up the
Great.
grain series.
Fantastic.
Well, yesterday we heard about some wonderful small scale equipment as well from Elizabeth Dick that I was pretty excited about. So hopefully we'll be able to get maybe one of these small hullers, Sylvia, and one of these rollers. We're able to dehull some of the spelt and work with some of the hulless barleys, which will be fun.
That'd be great. And I think one of the things that was really interesting to me that Elizabeth was talking about yesterday is that one of the spelt varieties in particular was more difficult to dehull than the others, that the hull was held really tightly on the grain. And so that is something that it would be very interesting to try to evaluate among the different spelt varieties to see if there's any particular variety that's actually easier to dehull. My understanding is that one of the issues with dehulling spelt in particular is that the grain itself is actually softer than with some of the bread wheats. And so you have this combination of needing to dehull it, but also having a slightly more delicate grain. So ease of dehulling would definitely be an advantage.
Yeah, and I have heard that from various farmers that have grown one variety of spelt in particular. I think it's called Maverick out of Pennsylvania, and they've said that it hulls very easily and actually does some hulling right in the combine. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see where we can go next, and really appreciated getting all of that information from Elizabeth. So it was very helpful. All right, well, today we're going to be baking with spelt, and we're joined today again by Sylvia Davatz. She gave us a wonderful presentation yesterday about the history of spelt and all of its wonderful properties. And so today she's going to be showing us how to bake some sourdough bread with spelt. And Jeffrey Hamelman, who we heard from last week, when we were baking with Ryan, today he's going to be showing us how to make some sourdough spelt pretzels, which again, I wish we were there so we could taste all this. But with that, I'm going to let the two of you take it away so that you have plenty, or at least enough time.
Go ahead. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'd like to start by putting really huge thanks to Heather, Catherine, Henry, who have been working tirelessly to get this NGGA winter conference. It's going to be 80. Okay, it's still the winter conference, I guess, to get this off the ground, because it's tons of work and they're doing it all behind the scenes. And also I want to thank Carrie from King Arthur. She runs the entire King Arthur Bakery, no small task. She's filming us today, and she's been working hard to get ready for this too. So big thanks to all those people. And I don't want to forget to request that my email address is put up on the screen somehow or in the chat room, so that if I'm not clear with any of the things that I'm covering today, you can email me and I'd be happy to let you know. what I forgot to let you know during the class. So with that, take it, Sylvia.
Thank you. I just want to echo Jeffrey's thanks to everyone who's been working so hard behind the scenes on this, and also acknowledge that this is a new platform. And so we're all basically feeling our way forward in the dark with these live sessions. So it's a learning experience for us, for all of us, and we're certainly beginning to understand some of the advantages of it as well as the downsides. So having said that, I think we should take it away.
I've been calling it the Zoomality, and I'm wondering if I can patent that word or copyright it or something.
Give it a try.
Right? Get some royalties. Okay.
Exactly.
You first, take it away.
So we're going to begin here. And I think Jeffrey may have explained this, or probably explained this in his RISE session as well, is that what we're doing today is a reverse chronology order of things. In other words, what we're going to start to demonstrate is what will actually be happening at the very end of the process when you're doing this at home. And so these are loaves that were mixed and shaped this morning in preparation for being slipped right into the oven now at the beginning of this session. So this is 100% spelt bread. There is whole wheat spelt contained in here. And fortunately, we were able to get flour that was milled by John Melquist up in Vershire. And we're absolutely thrilled about that because, of course, one of the objectives of the Northern Grain Growers Association is to begin to cultivate and expand and nurture a local economy that's based in grains. And so that goes way beyond just baking, and it extends into the growing of the grains and the milling of the grains as well. So we're going to do 2 loaves here. This is 100% spelt flour. So there's a large percentage of whole wheat spelt, but there's also a small percentage of white spelt flour. And the starter culture is 100% rye. And you'll see when I mix the dough how that all works out. We're going to do 2 baking versions. One of them is in a cast iron pot that I use at home because I'm a home baker. And so I don't have the kind of professional ovens that King Arthur has here, which will help inject steam into the process. So we're going to bake 1 loaf in a cast iron pot, and the other loaf will go directly onto the deck of the oven. And so maybe we could start that process. I'm ready. I'm going to take the Lodge pot out first. So one of the things I discovered at home is that the loaf that is baked in the oven where steam is provided gets this absolutely beautiful sort of a lacquered finish to it. And what I discovered at home is that if I paint the surface of the loaf with water right before it goes in the oven, and then spritz a little bit of water in, Jeffrey, if you would oblige me and put the lid on, and then that can go straight back in. This one. Yep. Sorry about that. And then I don't think I need to paint the surface of this one, but I definitely want to. And I'm just using an X-Acto blade because it cuts really deeply into the loaf. So the Lodge pot will go in there for 30 minutes with the lid on, and then the lid comes off for the final 15 minutes of baking so that the beautiful crust can develop.
All right.
That's over to you.
Good.
As they say.
I'm going to be making 100% spelt pretzels. The formula has 50% whole spelt, 50% white spelt, a little bit of sourdough. I'm sure since pretzels have a history that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, that sourdough certainly was part of early pretzel recipes. So I've taken 15% of the overall flour and put that into a spelt sourdough. I did that last night. First thing I'm going to do is dip pretzels in sodium hydroxide solution, known as lye. It's a 4% solution, means 4 parts lye pellets to 100 parts water. Specifically, I use 30 grams of spelt and 750 grams of water. The lye gets mixed into the water, not the other way around. That's very important. So I'm going to dip the pretzels in the lye. And as I do, I'll discuss the virtues of using the lye bath. Then we'll bake those. And any questions while I'm doing it, don't hesitate. If you look at things on a pH scale, which goes from 0 to 14, low numbers are acidic, high numbers are base or alkaline. Sodium hydroxide is almost 14. It's about 13, which means it's highly caustic. If you get a little bit on your finger, it's no big deal. Just walk over and rinse your finger. If you get a little bit in your eye, you're going to be blind in that eye. It's going to eat right through your entire eye. So many people wear goggles when they do it. You should definitely wear gloves when you dip, but goggles are optional. I personally have never worn them, which doesn't mean it's not a good idea. It just means I personally haven't worn them. I made this solution an hour or so ago, labeled it carefully. And I am a firm believer that whoever prepares the lye bath is also the person who cleans up every aspect of the lye when you're done. Okay, I think I've got everything. When I started my baking life, I worked 5 years for a German woman, and for the first year and a half or so, among other things, I made the pretzels. We did 400 a day, or shall I say, I did 400 a day, and I must say I absolutely loved it. So, okay, you can see the lye bath. What I'm going to do with the first pretzel is just dip it halfway. That will give us the opportunity to see the effect of using the lye, the difference between the dipped portion and the undipped portion is pretty dramatic. It won't be as dramatic with these because there's so much whole grain in them. But if you used white flour, it would definitely show itself very clearly. So they go in the bath for 5 seconds is plenty. Some people like to wear gloves that go way up your arms. That's fine too. Okay, here's 6. I have one more tray of 6. And I don't know if I showed the pretzels earlier. There they are. I made them at home when they were about 50% risen. I refrigerated them. You'll want to dip things cold because they'll be a little bit too fragile if they're room temperature, and in all likelihood, they'll get very distorted shape-wise. Because lye can be potentially quite dangerous, I liken it to using a chainsaw. Whenever I use a chainsaw, the entire universe is me and the chainsaw, and I try not to ever let my focus stray. It's the same with the lye. I don't want to be elsewhere in my thoughts or conversations. I want to really be focusing on what I'm doing. Okay. Here's the 12 pretzels. I'm going to transfer them to this sheet pan. There's the undipped ones there. And I've got a batch that I mixed at home a couple of hours ago, and that batch is going to be divided and shaped into pretzels in a short while. These will bake in roughly 16 minutes or so. At about, depends on your oven. A lot of ovens, you set it and it says supposedly 450, but it's really 420. So I like to bake things for the amount of time they should be in the oven. So for these, 15 to 16 minutes is a good length of bake for a 3 ounce or 85 gram product. Okay, so now the pretzels are here. Now they're going to get cut. You'll notice that I put a plastic liner on the bench. That's a really good precaution if you're doing this on wood, because if not, you're going to discolor the wood and it's not going to look real good. Oh, I made one mistake. Typically, salt goes on the pretzels. There's a special pretzel salt that looks the same after the bake as it does before the bake. In other words, it doesn't dissolve. It'll dissolve if you put these in the freezer after the bake and pull them out in a week or so. But it won't dissolve in the oven. I was taught, again, by a German woman to salt the top bulbous area, not the entire pretzel. Now and again, you'll see people salting the entire pretzel, which I think is excessive. I'm not a big fan of the salt, frankly. So one thing that I like to do is put sesame seeds on as an option. I might not be admitted into Germany if I did this, but it's okay. And then you might just give it a couple of flakes of salt. Okay, so I said I had made a mistake, and that was that I cut that first one, which is the kind of test one, and then realized that actually you want to salt, then cut. The reason for that is if you slice the pretzels first, then you're going to get salt in the furrow, and my first boss would not be happy. She was a stickler. When she was almost dead, I went to visit her. She was living outside Northampton, Massachusetts, where her bakery was. And I said, I'm going to go and see Susan and bring her some pretzels. So I made a batch of pretzels, baked them. As soon as they came out of the oven, drove with my wife all the way down 100 miles to Hadley, where she lived. She was pretty infirm at that point, so she was sitting on the couch. I come in, I give her a box, I give her a kiss. She opens up the box, looks in it, looks at me, looks back in the box, looks at me and says, "You were better." I said, "Okay, thanks." Okay, you were better. And there they go. And again, about 15 minutes. I put the timer on 10 just so I can check them. There are the pretzels. I'll clean up this station, and then Sylvia, I think you're going to
I'm going to
divide and shake.
divide and shake.
Great.
Hey, so this is, I think the recipe for this loaf was forwarded to all participants ahead of today's webinar. And once a one batch, one recipe quantity will make 2 loaves. And so that's what I did. And this batch was started this morning, and it was probably started at about 9 o'clock. So it has had a chance already to rise a couple of times. And so it's should be pretty much ready to be divided, shaped. Now I think, sure, thank you. Thanks, Jeffrey. I think I mentioned that I'm a home baker, and so I tend to keep things as simple as I possibly can. So the measurements that I use are all cups and spoons, and cups, spoons, and intuition is how I tend to bake. And of course, that means that I don't get the kind of absolute consistency that Jeffrey would get being a professional baker. He will have perfect consistency every single time. He's making some comments off camera, everybody. So just, all right, so here it is. And this is a wonderful supple loaf. It's very soft. So this has been, it's nice and moist. And I like to have a moist dough because it makes it, this does not really get kneaded a whole lot, but it gets folded and stretched. So what I've been doing over the course of the morning is just basically sort of pulling it like this and then folding it. And that has happened a couple of times over the course of the morning. It's still pretty sticky, as you can see. The delicate issue here is that if the dough is too moist, I think there's a greater possibility and a greater likelihood that you might wind up overproofing the loaves. So I'm kind of careful about how much moisture I include. So, and Jeffrey, just bear with me here. Jeffrey would weigh each half so that we are within a half a gram of precision here.
No, 10th of a gram.
Tenth of a gram, excuse me. All right.
You're calling me an inaccurate slacker, huh? Okay.
Yeah, okay, so I can actually tell these to me look pretty much the same size. Okay. You want to weigh one in each hand and see what you think. It's heavier, all right. By how much, Jeffrey?
13.6
that?
grams. Yeah, perfect.
How's that? Do you want to test again?
No.
All right, you're going to trust it? Okay, so once again, it's very simple, very straightforward, basically just folding and pressing. So what we're aiming for here is a beautiful round loaf, and I kind of tuck in the edges. I'm trying to make it relatively high because it will expand a little bit as it does its final rise. So just go tuck in the ends, tuck in the bottom. Give it a little bit of flour. Okay. And want to prevent it from sticking on the board. So these guys. And these can be given a final rise of maybe about an hour or a little bit less even. Sometimes I will shape them while the oven is heating and while the Lodge pot is warming up in the oven. And then by the time the oven is hot and the pot is hot, they are ready to go in. So I'm going to cover them up again just to prevent the surface from drying out and spritz a little moisture on the tea towel again to keep it all from drying out.
Is that spritz or spritz?
Well, it depends on whether your teacher was German or not. If your teacher was German, it's spritz.
Sure. And there must be an umlaut somewhere.
We can add one in. If you're unhappy without the umlaut, I can accommodate you.
Just checking.
Sure. All right, off we go. We're going off stage now.
Okay, here's pretzel dough that I mixed at home. It's ripe and ready. It's a little over 2 hours old. An hour and a half is a minimum adequate, I would say, but you can go a little more than that. I'll use this actually.
Oh, sure.
And I have a little dusting flour here, which is actually white spelt. So I wanted to stay completely in the realm of spelt and not use regular wheat flour. So the dusting is also spelt. So this is a yield of 12 at 3 ounces or 85 grams. And what I'll do is I'll divide this more or less in thirds, figuring each third should make 4 pretzels so that I can sort of eyeball it and see.
You want me to check on that?
The scale is doing a fine job, and
Sure.
it doesn't talk
Did you
back.
calibrate it?
I quit.
You can't.
Uh, Sylvia is a legendary grower. We each live in Heartland, and her reputation goes far and wide, way beyond Heartland. And now, it's many years ago, she was putting in an absolute state-of-the-art greenhouse at her property. And what did she do? She donated to my wife and me, her hoop house that we've been using, I don't know, must be 15 years now, I think, right?
I think so. Yeah. Something like that.
All right, so when I've divided these, I have 2 options from here. One option would be to turn them into blunt cylinders right now, which works. Alternatively, what you can do is round them first, and then when they relax slightly, turn them into blunt cylinders. I'm going to do it that second method, and there's a reason. By first rounding them, I'm bringing more strength to the dough. And that's going to result with pretzels that are just a little more kind of supple in your mouth. There'll be a little more kind of chew to them. So it's not 100% necessary to do this, but my preference is to do it. The other way, well, I'll show you the other way. As soon as these relax, which won't take long, they will be turned into blunt cylinders. And then from there, we'll turn them into pretzels.
Do you want to talk about the cultural history of pretzels at all? Because I find that really interesting.
I find it fascinating. There's 2 stories that I know, and there probably are more, and who cares if they're apocryphal. If they're fun stories, we go with them. The one that I've heard is that the pretzel, because of the way the arms are twisted, it's supposed to simulate prayer position or something like that. And when children said their prayers well, they were given a pretzel. That's one story. The other story I heard, which I'm very fond of, and I don't know if it's true or not, is there was a member of the aristocracy who said to his baker cook, make me a product that has 3 openings in it to represent the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And that became the pretzel. And I don't know, do you know other stories?
Well, a little bit. The prayer theme that you were talking about is really interesting because one of the things that I've heard is that the pretzel shape is an ancient Celtic votive symbol. And I love language and I love thinking about the origin of words. And so, of course, I rushed to the dictionary and looked up votive. And so votive, is that us?
That's 10 minutes on my time. Go ahead, votive.
So the meaning of votive is really an aspiration or a prayer or a wish. And we all know about votive candles that we light in churches. And of course, the other word that is associated with that is voting. And when we vote, of course, we are expressing some kind of an aspiration or a wish for
wishful thinking.
Don't be cynical. But I love all those connections and all these different interpretations and meanings and stories. And
like the word companion.
Exactly, with bread. With bread.
Okay, these are going to become blunt cylinders now. They see how quickly they relax. So now I'll take them and just fashion them by making tight little bites with my fingers. I'm using 6 fingers. And then when I get to the bottom, I use my thumbs and the table. The table provides some traction so that they tighten. They don't just slip and slide on the table. When I was doing these at 400 a day, this isn't the process. We had a divider that would take a big chunk of dough and manually divide it into 36 pieces. And then we had a little roller that was specifically made for pretzels that would turn it into these cylinders. So it was a much quicker process. Once this happens, it's going to be very quick for them to relax. If they over-relax, it's very hard to form them into pretzels because it's as if they've been on barbiturates and they just kind of slump into shape and they're too lengthy or whatever. If you try to shape them before they're sufficiently relaxed, then you've got another problem, which is that they are too reluctant to be stretched out to their full length. And so because we're humans and we dominate the entire universe, we say, well, too bad, pretzel, you're going to obey me because I want you to be this long. And the pretzel says, oh yeah, human, watch. And it proceeds to rip all over the place. So you have to find that sweet spot where the pretzel is relaxed enough to be shaped with a bit of resistance. And different flours provide different amounts of resistance. There's 2 very important proteins in flour, glutenin and gliadin in most flours, not in rye flour so much. Glutenin gives us elastic properties. So think about what a rubber band wants to do when you stretch it. When you stretch a rubber band, it wants to go this way. That's what glutenin does. So it gives you elastic properties. The other one is extensibility, which is the protein that wants to go this way. So we're trying to find the balance between elasticity and extensibility when we start to shape. It'll really just be a matter of a minute until I can start shaping these. Different flours have different gluten and gliadin properties, and spelt has a higher percentage of extensibility or gliadin than glutenin. So it's more eager to go this way, which can create some problems in the shaping.
So do I understand this correctly, that the gluten is not actually contained in the flour? It's a question of those 2 substances combining when water is added, and that then forms
That's right.
the gluten.
That's right.
Yeah. So what is the feel of the dough? How is the feel of the dough different with spelt than it would be? I mean, you probably feel that in your.
Well,
in
one
the hands when
reason
you're forming them.
one reason this feels different from a regular white flour pretzel is because of the presence of the whole grain. So I milled the whole spelt at home, and there's a lot of bran and germ that are now part of this, and that's going to interrupt the properties of the gluten too. It's going to kind of puncture a little bit the gluten, and so it's going to make it easier for it to kind of rip while I'm shaping. So let's see how they're doing. I like to stretch it just a bit to see if it's got enough, if it's enough willingness to go. That's something that happens only from experience. If you like pretzels and you decide you're going to do this, what you want to do is you want to gauge trying to shape it when it's this tight, when it's this tight, when it's this tight, so that you get some parameters for what is the sweet spot, right? And that's going to change with different flours too in different seasons. So when you train your hands to know, oh yeah, this feels just relaxed enough, that's good. Then you'll be able to use that hand knowledge with whatever flour you're using. So now I'm rolling this out. I think you can see that. Let me move that a little bit out of the way. Couple things here. That's for my pretzels. Watch this. There it is. Okay. I'll do that in slow-mo in a second. Okay, yeah, thanks. Yep, these feel done. They're fairly soft in the center, but I've got a crust here, which is good because we want this to have a certain softness to it. And we want to have that nice crustiness. We also are going to get different eating areas because this will be a little puffier and a little more doughy, and this will be almost crispy like a dried pretzel that you buy in the store. The half-dipped one doesn't show very well at all. If you look around the bottom of the legs, so what's the top part of things now, you can see a difference. If you make a white flour pretzel, there's a very dramatic difference between the undipped portion and the dipped portion. Specifically, what's happening is that the dipped portion, the lye is encouraging some chemical changes on the surface. And it's, technically speaking, it's called the Maillard reaction, which takes place in the presence of heat, moisture, sugars, and proteins. So when you sear a steak, you're getting a Maillard browning, which is different from caramelization. You also get that in baked goods, in breads that you bake. And the lye facilitates Maillard browning. Watch this. I'm going to flip this twice in the air. Look at that. It just broke. I told you it was extensible. If it breaks, I'm glad it did. I was going to intentionally break one. Overlap the two pieces that broke and just rub them together. I'm going to twist this twice and drop it.
Your German teacher is rolling over in her grave.
She sure is. Oh my God, is she going to dock my pay?
What did I teach
Right,
you,
okay.
Jeffrey?
I'll show you this on a fresh one, okay? Jeez, what did he teach me? Nothing. Watch, okay?
All right.
This dough is relaxing. Very
Pressure's on.
Pressure's on. You hear my hands, right? Listen. You hear that sound? That's because my palms are on the bench the entire time so that I can get it to the full length as quickly as possible. Now, that's a lot of wraps. That's not going to make a pretzel. I told you it was.
No, so, okay, so does this mean that the dough is actually over relaxed?
It's the dough is getting over relaxed. Plus, I think the presence of all the bran in there
Mhm.
is having an impact. So,
But you know, the speckle aspect of them is really beautiful.
Oh,
So
and
they
so's the
may
flavor.
not be, they may not be as dark lacquered as if you had made them with white flour, but
right.
they are beautiful.
So this is the kind of professional way to do it. You'll train yourself quickly to have two overlaps and then take the ends and go up to the corresponding shoulder. Have that little bulbous area coming outside the body of the dough a little bit. Transfer the dough by holding it. You'll see fingers on top and bottom, and then lay it down into a pretzel shape. Another way to make the pretzel, it's a little slower, but it's equally effective. And it's easier to start out with. Get it the proper length. Have a nice taper so that you've got nice skinny arms so that they get crispy. Leave that bulbous end because that's an aesthetic thing. And then all you do is make an upside down letter U on the bench. Go once, go twice, and then bring the ends up to the appropriate shoulder. Once again, hold it like this as you transfer it. That's yours, Sylvia. You want me to pull out? You want me to pull out the lodge? Press stop. Press it. Press it harder.
Wants the baker's thumb.
Yeah. Okay, so this is lid off, right?
Lid off. Okay. Lid off, slid back in.
Okay, here's the loaf
Oh,
today.
there it is.
Somehow.
So it's opening up fairly well.
Certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Whoops, that's the wrong one.
And you want another?
10 minutes, 15, let's do 15 minutes. Yeah, let's do 15. Get it nice and crisp. Thank you.
So let me show you that other simpler method again. Very little attention here because I want this to be the bulbous part. Most all the attention is making the arms skinny. Notice how the ends of my hands do not go over that outside bulb. You can't really see it on that side, but you see here, the bulb should stay visible. Again, that's just aesthetic. And the full length is going to be wider than your shoulders, unless you're one of these real super types. So again, upside down letter U, fold once, fold twice, bring it to the shoulder, and then look how small it is here. That's not going to be good enough, but with just a little bit of stretch.
So the dough is soft enough so you could do a lot of correcting of the shape,
Yeah.
even as you lift it and then put it on the pan.
Yep, even after you're done, you can go back to a finished tray when you're done with it, and you can make them a little bigger if you need to, just by stretching them the way I showed you when you're with 4 fingers. Right? This is how I like to transfer them so that they're going on the sheet pan, more or less the right size. This one's too small, so I'll show you when we're done what we're going to do with that. Okay, so this is 12 pretzels, the batch size. Here's the upside down letter U method. 1, 2. I like the speckles too. I think it's really
Yeah, it's just
pretty, and I like the
beautiful.
flavor.
Well, and you know that we always say we eat with our eyes first. So much of our pleasure in eating something is in the anticipation and in
Yeah,
looking at something and knowing what we are expecting to taste.
that's right. Again, when these proof about halfway, which will just really be another 15 minutes or so, then they get cold. You can actually refrigerate them overnight like this, and then dip them in the morning. Or alternatively, you can make the entire dough the night before, and then the next morning you can divide it, shape it. After they're half proofed, chill them again so that you're dipping them while they are cold. That's very important. Okay, so here's our tray of pretzels. And if you notice, it's going to be hard to notice, but oh, can you do that? That would be great. Okay, so you see this is the smallest. Okay, it's not like we're getting too picky here, but again, I am a professional baker. So I want as much consistency as I can. So this one is too small. It's a very simple matter of picking it up. That's all. All done. This one might want it too. Doesn't take much. Okay, these are actually almost where I want them to be in terms of rising. The room's fairly warm. I can feel kind of airiness in here. So I'll leave these maybe for 5 minutes. Then I'm going to chill them. And I think now we're each going to be mixing doughs, right?
That's right.
You're going to use the mixer with the title?
I am.
And I'm going to mix by hand. And
Okay.
the method that I use is going to be very applicable at home for all manner of doughs. So I'll do it with the pretzels, but you can do it with whatever you
Great.
want.
Okay. So we'll move this puppy over and get the ingredients. Okay, I think this should do it. So this might very well make Jeffrey cringe. We'll have to see.
I'll go out and smoke a couple cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, save one for me, would you please?
What do you like in yours?
Anything that's legal.
You're in Vermont.
That's true. All right, enough. So what I have in here already at this point is the whole wheat spelt flour, the white spelt flour, and a little bit of sea salt. And I love mixing all sorts of different seeds and things into the loaf itself for
What-
texture and flavor. Already?
What seed did it come from, that salt?
What seed?
Yeah.
Well, funny you should ask, because it is actually sel de Guérande, which is from the Normandy, I think the Normandy coast of France. Brittany, thank you. See, why did you ask? You already know the answer.
Well,
It's like a
I just
lawyer, and
wanted-
never ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
Oh, sweet.
But I love it. It's wonderfully coarse. So in many ways, it acts like an extra ingredient. It's not just a seasoning, but it's an ingredient along with everything else. So, okay, so sunflower seeds and flax seeds. Get every last little one there, waste not, want not, right? And millet for a nice amount of crunch. None of these are pre-soaked, just so you know. And homegrown amaranth. I've been doing a lot of experimenting with, certainly with different wheats, wheat, rye, barley, oats. I love the old landrace varieties, the ones that come from a specific region, perhaps, that were farmer selected, that are particularly adapted to a region, maybe even suitable for a particular kind of baking. All of these wonderful, very specific characteristics that these grains have, I think is absolutely wonderful. And I mentioned this yesterday, but there was one spelt variety called Pretzel that UVM included in its trials last summer. And this is a spelt from the Palatine region of Germany, which is sort of central Western Germany over by the border with Luxembourg. And it's specified for baking pretzels. And I believe it came to Pennsylvania along with settlers into that region from Germany. So, okay, so we have the different dry ingredients here.
Sylvia, I made this bread at home last week. I wanted to try it, but I need some advice because I mixed it outside because it was a pretty mild day. And then the phone rang, so I went inside to get the phone. And when I came back outside, the birds had eaten all the seeds. Do you have any advice?
Well, I think that's a plus, don't you? I mean, then you maybe need to just mix it up and put a portion out for them every morning.
But they
Don't you
also,
think?
never mind, I'm not going to finish that sentence.
Really?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I know where you're, don't go there.
Okay, I'm going to put my mask on.
Well, this is true. And actually what you're saying is it touches on a really kind of an interesting point, because when you're growing grains, you're actually growing birdseed. And because this is where the seeds are, where all the nutrition is. It's where the life is in the seed. And so, of course, you're going to be attracting a lot of creatures to your grain patches and everything. So just be prepared for that. Anyway, so, and here we have what this morning was 2 cups of very active starter. And what happens is when you feed the starter, and this was fed several times over the course of a couple of different days just to give it as much life as possible. And then when you decant it into the measuring cup, to some extent, it deflates a little bit. You're knocking some of the bubbles out. But of course, the minute you've measured it, it begins to expand again. And it's because it's so full of life. So right now, it looks like more than 2 cups. But what I use in the recipe is definitely 2 cups. And Jeffrey, of course, being the professional baker, said, well, what's the percentage of rye flour in your starter? And
I did not say it with that. I said it with a tenor voice.
Okay.
What's the percentage of rye flour?
You're channeling Julia.
Okay,
Right?
Jacques.
Okay. Alors, what you will dire is percentage.
I'm never doing this again. Never doing this again.
Are you kidding? We're just starting to have fun. Anyway, so as I mentioned before, I basically use measurements. I don't use precise weights.
That's why they kicked you out of Switzerland.
Absolutely. I went before they could do that. I left voluntarily. Couldn't stand it. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to try to mix this a little bit. Is this going to work? Oh, I love this slow speed. Mine doesn't do that at home. So just to mix up the dry ingredients a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to decant the starter culture in here. So I don't know the percentage of rye flour in here, but on the recipe that I handed out to everyone, oh, sure, thank you. I gave the formula for feeding the starter. So once you have your own starter culture going, you will know what the percentage is for feeding it to keep it alive. And most professional bakers, Jeffrey, I think you do this. You feed yours every single day, don't you?
Yeah, 7 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're using it frequently too, right?
Not now, since I'm not baking in production anymore. But I
Okay.
still feed it 7 days a week. In fact, the first food that goes into my mouth every morning is either going to be some sourdough,
Ooh.
if I feed that before I feed myself, because I taste it every day, or it's going to be honey, because most mornings I have honey from my bees.
Oh, divine. Sounds fabulous. Okay, so we do need to bring this back up again. What was I going to say about that? I forget. It'll come back to me.
You don't want to.
Oh, I know, not yet.
Okay.
I want to mix this in first. So I mix the starter in first because once again, I haven't weighed the water. I just have, it's approximately 2 cups is what you'll need. And I know what I wanted to say before is that if you are feeding your starter with any kind of frequency and regularity, you're going to have some leftover starter most times. And so what I've included in the little virtual handout for you guys is a recipe for so-called discard sourdough crackers. So rather than composting anything that's left over of your starter or just spooning it into your mouth along with your morning honey, you can use it. You can use it to make crackers. And I think one of the things we wanted to talk about today is just the versatility of spelt flour. It's absolutely wonderful, flavorful, rich, digestible flour. And so don't just use it for bread, use it for other things. So I'm going to try to do this without distributing spelt flour all over the bakery here. So I'm going to mix this in pretty thoroughly. And I don't know if you can, this thing will buzz, right?
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
wonderful.
okay.
Thank you so much. Okay. Going to take a minute. I wanted to get to a nice crumbly texture. Maybe we can speed it up just a little bit. So as I'm sure you have detected at this point already, is that this is really a bog simple loaf to make, extremely simple. And what's most time consuming about it is the amount of rise time that you have to allow. But it's an amazingly flavorful loaf. It's incredibly rich in aroma and flavor. It's surprisingly versatile too, even though it's a fairly dense loaf. It makes fabulous toast, makes fabulous grilled cheese sandwich, makes a wonderful regular old sandwich. So I'm just gonna scrape away here a little bit. And I guess I'll have to use my finger for this. It's okay, won't lick it. Okay, so we've got a pretty crumbly texture here now. So I'm going to start pouring in the water. And I think part of the reason I don't actually measure it in advance is that the amount of moisture in the flour before you even get started is going to affect the texture of the dough. And so you will not need the same amount of water every single time that you bake, especially if you're getting your flour from different sources at different times. You may not always know when it was milled. we ready with those guys? Okay, so I want a pretty moist dough. So I think this is gonna tolerate a little bit more water. Can we pause for those guys?
Yeah, do you want to see it?
Oh, sure. Okay, so is this the one that was just on the deck?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So here's the deck one. And we're gonna allow it to cool a little bit before we slice it.
But is it, are you good with it, or do you want it in more?
Well, it certainly feels done.
How about here?
That's surprising that it didn't. Yeah, I think this needs more. Interesting. This needs more. Not interesting. It came out so differently from at home.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You want to
Would
finish
you-
it on the deck or on here?
Oh, let's finish it in here because that's how it got started. So again, I mean, this is just another indication of that you will get different results depending on what your home circumstances are or what your professional bakery circumstances are, just in terms of what the final results are. And you'll just have to experiment with different measurements, proportions, all sorts of things like that until you get the results that you want. Okay, it's starting to come together really nicely. So I'm going to stop it again and test the moisture. You can see it's still fairly crumbly, but it's moist enough so it's already sticking to my hands a little bit. So a little bit more water. Oops. Getting away from me. This is essentially, I would probably call this a no-knead loaf. And that certainly refers to the kind of manipulation it will need. Here we go. Okay. And that's K-N-E-A-D. What I have found is that I love this loaf so much that I need a lot. I need N-E-E-D. I love having it. It freezes really well. I usually slice it before I freeze it.
So that's done.
This is done. So actually, let me do a little. Did you want to say something? No? Okay. Put this over here for now. I think I can do this. Oh, it's pretty heavy dough, as you can see. Just invert it. Oh. Last crumb out. So it's pretty moist. A little bit more sprinkling flour on my hands. And then just enough kneading so that it holds together. And when I make this loaf at home, I've been allowing it to ferment for about 2 hours, and then I'll stretch it and fold it, and then allow it to rise again for a couple of hours, then shape it while the oven is heating and get it ready for the bake. And that's how simple it is. So I'm going to cover this now. Cover it with a tea towel.
Do you ever shape those and then leave them overnight? Refrigerated?
I don't think I have done that with this particular dough, but there's no reason why you couldn't do that. Absolutely.
It can be
And there are
really
actually some forms of dough. For instance, I make I make what in Swiss is called Zopf, which basically means braid, and it's exactly the same dough as challah.
Yeah.
And that actually benefits enormously from being refrigerated
Yeah,
overnight.
the dough itself, not the
Dough.
not the braids.
That's right, the dough itself
Yeah.
before it gets formed into the
Mhm.
braids. Then it relaxes and it has just an exquisite silky texture. So I'm just gonna spritz or spritz this a little bit to keep the surface from drying out, and then off it goes. Oops. Okay.
All right. I'm going to mix the pretzels. Are you set, Sylvia, or do you have more things you want to say?
No, I'm all set. I'm just gonna clean up my mess here.
Okay. I've got here some sourdough culture. Again, it's a small batch. It's only 12 pretzels, and only 15% of the total flour is being fermented. So it's a really silly small batch. What do I want to look for? It's a little hard to see. I don't want to see a concave shape. That would indicate that it had risen and overrisen and so collapsed. You want to, particularly if you're making a bread that only is leavened by sourdough, you want to make sure your sourdough is in prime condition. And visually, that would mean that when you palpate it, you can feel an aeration. It should be kind of boggy feeling, but it also would mean you've got a slight curve to the sourdough, not a concave, but a convex, I think is the correct terminology. The other thing you can certainly do is check for the degree of acidity. It shouldn't be inert and neutral, and it shouldn't be so aggressive that it's going to add too much acidity, unpleasant acidity to the final dough. I think your bread's just
Yeah, I was just
ready.
wondering about that.
Oh, sorry, 7 seconds.
Oh. By the time we vote for the oven, don't you think? Wait, should we just reach in? Do this?
Sure.
Is this the right one?
Mhm.
That's a little better.
That was 6 more minutes.
Okay. So that's good to know.
What do you think? Good?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
I did it. I did it.
Excellent.
Good. The lid is here. You might want to keep them together just so that.
Oh, sure.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So the sourdough's in good condition. It ripened for roughly 16 hours. That's going to go in here. Again, if you're going to make breads that are leavened entirely with sourdough, then it's absolutely crucial that it's in the best shape possible. If you have some yeast going in too, commercial yeast, it's not as important, but nevertheless, it's nice to be able to really nail the ripeness of your sourdough.
So your culture is actually very firm. Is there
Yeah.
some relationship between the firmness and the acidity of it? I think I remember you saying something like that at one point.
Generally speaking, more acetic acid develops in a firmer environment. Looser environments encourage more lactic acid. So if you think lactic, think of kind of the smoothness of yogurt. It's got some acidity, but it's a smoother one compared to acidic, which would be vinegary, right? So you can a little bit direct the trajectory of the taste of your breads by either using a firm or a loose sourdough, although there's so many other factors that you can say, well, I want a really sourdough, but I only keep a liquid culture. Well, you can still get that with various other methods of manipulating your dough. In here, I've got whole spelt and white spelt and salt. I'm just going to mix them a little bit together. In they go. Maybe this is a good time for a top view, Carrie. I wonder, do you think a top view for this part? Last is going to be the butter. Many formulas, particularly ones from emanating right from Germany, use lard, not butter. In my first job, we used all lard, and it gives you a little more smoothness, a little more pliability. It can be a really nice flavor to add to it. I never liked using the lard personally. Well, I was vegetarian for 25 years, so I definitely didn't like using the lard.
Right.
I would be more than happy to use lard if I was getting kind of local organic lard, but I think if it's lard coming from the national lard industry,
Yeah, don't
I
want
don't think
that.
so.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to mix everything together into a shaggy mass, and then I'm going to dump it out on the bench, and I'm going to show you a very effective way to mix doughs by hand. Super, super wet doughs would be hard to mix with the way I'm going to show you. Certainly pretzel dough, which is firm by nature, it's very easy to mix this by hand. Nothing wrong with using a machine, but it's nice to see some other options. It also, you know, gives you a little more direct contact with your experience in a way. So what you do, once things have come together, bring it onto the bench. And now I'm going to start, oh, you know what I forgot to add? I forgot to add the yeast.
Oh,
And I am adding some yeast to this.
I think there are 2 drops of water left in the beaker.
Oh my
too,
gosh,
so
okay.
Make sure you add
I
those.
see people need a refund. Okay. And once again, I've got some dusting flour if I need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to point my thumbs towards one wall or the other. It doesn't matter which wall as long as you return to this direction. Then I'm going to pick the dough up, rotate my thumbs to the top, and then flop this on its back and flop it over. Point my thumbs, pick it up, rotate my thumbs to the top, flop it on its back, flop it over. And I keep repeating that pattern. And essentially what that means is that every time I do that rotation, I'm working up a different quadrant of the dough. So every 4 strokes, I've worked up the entire mass of dough. Now you can see that it's very shaggy right now. That's how it starts. Don't add flour to it because you'll just make it this kind of dry inner bomb. So let it be shaggy. That's the nature of it right now.
So is the flour gonna hydrate as you're working it like this?
Yep, and not only that, the flour will hydrate, but the gluten will develop. And as the gluten develops, it's going to become more supple. The problem is if we say, oh my gosh, it's sticky. That's right, it's sticky. It's supposed to be sticky right now. But if I start adding all kinds of flour, I'm just going to make it way, way, way too dry. So there's no need to. And you'll see that because I'm about to increase the speed, which should increase the rate of gluten development.
Is the slapping part important?
Yeah, because it makes people think that you're super macho and you
Oh.
really know what you're doing. No,
Exactly.
it is.
So it's
important.
terrifying if women do it.
It is important, Sylvia, because that is actually helping to kind of stretch it. And now, actually, when I turn this over, now that it's starting to take some structure, instead of my hands going like this, they're going slightly out, which means essentially that I'm stretching it out here, which stretches the gluten and really helps with the development of the dough.
So if you're using spelt flour, it's going to by nature have less gluten than a white flour might, right?
Yep. But you can
Or
see
different
how
quality.
this is already starting to
Right.
it's still shredding, but it takes longer
very
for it to
stretchy.
shred, right?
Yeah.
It's starting to develop slightly. Now, you might say, if you think I'm going to do that for 15 minutes, you're crazy. Well, one of the too often overlooked aspects of bread development is that just from letting it sit, the dough develops gluten. Once you've added water to flour, you're activating the life cycle of the flour. And if I let this sit right here for 20 minutes or 15 minutes, when I come back to it, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't need it for the last 15 minutes, but somehow it feels stronger than it did 15 minutes ago. That's right. Because the gluten bonds, it's almost this mysterious thing, but the gluten bonds develop even in the absence of either mechanical agitation or hand mixing. That's one of the really cool things about baking, and better bakers use that to their advantage. And certainly mixing at home, I don't want to do this for 20 minutes, so I'll do it for 10 minutes. I'll go and do something, look at the birds for 10 minutes, come back in and do this a little more. There's one dough that's one of my favorite of all is, I call it unkneaded six-fold French bread. It's a white dough, and you basically just do this for less than 60 seconds, put a 30-minute timer on. Every time the timer goes off, do it for 30 more seconds. And you do that over the course of 3 hours. And it's effortless. And you get this very, very well-developed, supple dough. And somebody might say, yeah, but what if you have to do errands? Well, there's many times that I've had a little bowl of dough next to me in my truck while I go to the post office to check the mail in case I have to fold the dough while I'm gone. I put it in the seatbelt. It's all nice. But you
So
can see
does that mean you're on dough duty as opposed to child care duty?
breads rule, humans
They
rule.
do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can see that with a fair minimum of effort, I'm getting a dough that's already looking pretty supple, right? Before it wouldn't do this. Now it's really got good elasticity. But it's the same thing. Point, rotate, on its back, flop it over. So the flopping over is not this vigorous heel of your hand motion. It's simply your fingers flopping it. So see how I kind of stretched it out?
Well, it has a completely different sort of personality to it now than when you started. It's pretty much lost its shagginess.
It's lost its shagginess, yeah. And if you'll notice, I haven't even touched the flour. But early on, the inclination for many people, particularly if you're newish to bread baking, the inclination would be, oh my gosh, it's sticky. Flour, flour, flour. All of a sudden, it's like, is this bread dough or a bowling ball? You know?
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very supple,
really
very
supple.
quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it feels really good. It's a really nice feeling of connection. So I think I can safely leave this for now. You want to try it?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay.
I don't know. I have flour on my hands. Is that okay?
It's probably good.
So my thumbs, oh, sticking a little bit. I need to do this. This is my
Okay.
first
But
time, folks.
let me just point
There's a
one thing out.
direction.
There's a North Pole and a South Pole.
Yep.
So if this is the North Pole, now it's kind of inverted. South
Yep.
Pole's up. Now I've got
Over.
the North Pole back again. So you
Where are
want
you
to
pointing
keep,
to the middle?
that's where the North Pole is,
Okay,
right?
but now I need to grab it this way because that's
No,
where you had your
thumb's going
thumbs.
this way. That's
Right.
right. Yep.
Well,
Just pick it up,
oops.
rotate. You got it.
like
Right. And
that.
then just, yeah, a little more vigor and a slight outward stretching. Your thumbs are facing the wrong direction, but you can correct
They
that
are?
this time. Yep.
But I started them this way. Isn't that the
No,
right
your
thing?
thumbs face that wall.
They are.
No, they're not. They're facing this way. Now they're facing correctly. Go
All
ahead.
right, well, table is, oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then rotate your thumbs to the top,
Yeah.
on its back, and flop it
All
over.
right, how many years did it take you to get this right?
Come on, you can do it.
All right, thumbs.
Mhm.
See, I'm taking too long to do this, right? It's taking me too long because then, and then you have to stretch it a little bit and then fold it.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to hand it back over to you so we don't take up the rest of the time just with my
So-
learning this.
That's okay. It's like everything. There's a feel to it.
Oh, boy, yes.
Point, rotate on its back, and then fold.
Okay.
It becomes a very fluid motion. When you break it down into steps, it makes it easier to visualize, but it makes it look like it's this kind of staccato activity, when in fact it's a very legato,
Aha.
right? So,
But you're also doing it allegro.
allegro, mano,
Yeah.
fuoco, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to leave this for now. You can see that it's a pretty nice
Wow.
supple ball of dough. So that was what, 10 minutes
beautiful.
maybe? I don't know what it was.
There's real beauty to these gestures that have become so accomplished as a result of years of practice and years of learning, and the ease with which you do this. I mean, of course, you make it look really easy, but it is for you because you've been doing this for years and you've been practicing it.
Well,
But there's a beauty to it.
we should also just keep in mind the miraculous ability of the human hand, right? When you do this initially, okay, it's a cerebral act. First I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. That's because the knowledge hasn't kind of by osmosis gotten into your hands. Right? This is the same for any physical activity. Eventually, you realize that you're needing it. Oh, and you're talking to Bruce.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, wow, because it's not cerebral anymore. Now it's tactile.
Well, and this is, to some extent, this is what we mean when we say that we know something in our bones.
Yeah.
We know it in the
Yeah.
marrow of our bones.
Right.
It's completely intuitive, and we do it so automatically without the intervention, in a way, of the conscious
Well,
thought
that's it.
process.
And if I said to you, oh, Sylvia, we do a favor, bring me one sheet of paper, and you went over there and you picked some paper and you said, oh, wait, that's 2 pieces of paper, because the human head is that sensitive to say that's 2 pieces, it's not 1.
Exactly.
So if we can figure the difference between 2 pieces and 1, we can figure out how to knead some dough.
It's beautiful. What's next?
With 2, un brazel.
Oh, mais oui, naturellement, merci beaucoup. I need to go wash my hands or something. Are we going to break bread together?
Okay, so what the pretzel should provide is really a couple of very distinct and very enjoyable eating experiences. So here's the puffy, salty part, very doughy.
Oh,
I love that spelt.
I have to say, I love the salt.
Mhm.
And we wish that all of you were here with us to taste these. These are magnificent.
Listen to
pretzels.
this if you can. I don't know if it'll be picked up. Could you hear that? That's the other part of the eating experience of the pretzel, is the crispy bit.
Fabulous. Shall we see what
Mhm.
these guys look like inside?
You got a knife or you need one?
I didn't bring one.
Thanks, Carrie.
How are we doing for time?
It's
Oh,
10 up.
good. And I'd love to bring the sheaves over.
Oh, yes.
The sheaves
please.
and the cookies and
please.
things.
Absolutely.
So let me.
You want to get them or you want
I
help?
can get them if they're wheeled over here.
So you put the recipe for the crackers, right?
Yes,
And also
put-
for the cookies or no?
for the cookies.
I've eaten both and they are exceptionally tasty.
Oh, thank
Oh
you.
my God, they're good.
Eat some more. So these are the so-called discard sourdough crackers. And they're 100% spelt, but of course, also with the so-called discarded rye starter. And I use black sesame seeds because I love the addition of the sort of that color element that you're looking at. And there are homegrown poppy seeds in here. So once again, we're trying to grow ourselves as many of the ingredients that we use in these foods as possible. And this is my adaptation of a butter cookie, a cornmeal butter cookie from the Piedmont. And it has spelt flour in it. It's not mostly spelt flour, but the spelt, and I think I used cornmeal and spelt in here, gives it a wonderful crunch. So these are absolutely delicious. The recipe for that is included. And I also brought some sheaves of homegrown spelt. And I don't know, Carrie, if we want to do any, you're able to do that? Oh, wonderful. So these are both old Swiss varieties of spelt. The Altgold is a variety that was particularly adapted to growing at high elevations. The Rotenburger Rotkorn is from Lucerne, from the region around Lucerne. And this is a stunningly productive variety. I had one relatively isolated plant one year of this, and it grew 66 tillers. So its potential, I mean, it was like a shrub. It was just phenomenal. So it also has really long heads.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Spelt varieties are all really tall. They have incredibly sturdy stems. So there's very little tendency to lodge or fall over.
And what diversity of visuals.
Tremendous diversity. Yeah, tremendous
and the flavors,
diversity.
do you think, are very different too?
Well, that is something
Perceptibly?
I'm sure there's a difference in flavor. I'm never able to grow enough to trial baking qualities and flavor and all of that. I mean, this is why I'm so keen to get the seed into the hands of farmers who can grow
It would be
larger quantities
awesome
and
if
test everything.
NVGA, if we did some bake tests with spelt.
Exactly, and I think Henry is thinking of being able to do
would be
that.
fantastic.
And this is an Emmer variety, and Emmer is one of the ancestors of spelt. The current theory is that domesticated Emmer crossed with a club wheat, which is a bread wheat, and that then resulted in spelt. So I just want people to see that this is not only a flavorful and a nutritious grain to work with, but it's just eye-poppingly beautiful and delicious and versatile. You can do.
Are you sure it's good?
I don't know. You better taste it.
I'm about to.
All right. Only let me know if it's good.
I love it.
Yeah, you think so?
It's so good.
They're
My God.
actually really good. I keep them in the freezer, and they're really, really, really good straight out of the freezer because then they have this fantastic crunch. And again, I've made these with sorghum flour and with cornmeal. You could probably do it with barley and everything. So here, has a
I can smell it right
fantastic
from here.
nose.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys can see this. It's very dense, very nutty in flavor, very compact,
Well,
but
it's a characteristic. It's not a critique.
oh, absolutely.
Right?
No,
Dense is
it's
what it's supposed to be.
it's what it's supposed to be, and it's what I love. I mean, this is
Yeah.
what you might call a peasant bread, but it's what I really love in a bread. So, but it still has lots of moisture and some spring to the crumb. So there we have it, folks. Go
These
forth and
days, the
bake.
peasants are eating the 3 for $1 sliced white bread, and the
Well-
aristocracy is eating this. That's the big shift.
Well, and then we have to hope for a trickle-down economy where
That
the stuff that we have rediscovered, right, will eventually trickle back down to the peasants who gave it to us in the first place.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess
I
that's
guess
that.
questions.
Any questions? Let's have them if there are.
It was great fun. I hope you both had a good time too. This is Heather.
Yeah,
And
this
it's
was
good time.
torture.
Yeah, it looked like it. You guys should have your own, you should have your own baking show.
One of us would be in prison within a month.
Well, we were joking about this because when I lived in Cambridge, I would sometimes go to the Boston University had this fantastic culinary arts program. And they would have evening programs that you could go. And a couple of times I actually saw Julia Child there, which was a fantastic experience. She's just was the most amazing, wonderful person. And so one evening, she and Jacques Pépin did an event together. They cooked for this huge audience. And they were really like a stand-up comedy team because Julia with her, she was 6 feet 2 inches tall and her voice like this. And she would say, oh, well, you're throwing a handful of this. And Jacques, of course, was the precisionist. He had started his apprenticeship at 14. in France. And so he was, oh no, Julie, we need to use 2 grams of this and 2 grams of that. And so they were wonderful counterpoints to each other. Anyway, it was a wonderful experience.
Well, great. Are there any questions? It was pretty quiet in the chat box. I didn't see too much. I think we were all just watching and learning. At least I was. Wishing I had a pretzel right now.
I wish I could give you one, Heather.
I know. We're yeah, thank you. We really appreciate your time, and thank you, Carrie and King Arthur too. What a great opportunity.
Definitely.
Place for us to be able to do something like this. It's really.
And Heather, you're going to make sure that both of our email contact information is available in case people realize that they have questions that they'd like to direct us personally.
Yep, and they've been added to the chat box. So
Great.
Out directly, and a lot of people are saying thank you. I think this was a great way to wrap up our grain conference for 2021, and we'll see what 2022 brings. Hopefully something where we can actually share bread.
Right? Oh, let's hope for that.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, and thanks to everybody for attending. We've been posting the webinars and the materials on our website, and so Catherine and Henry have been sharing those with attendees as they make their way to the web. So if you want to watch it again, you can.
Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.